Silverton Mirror Maze had been closed for 43 years when Felix Chen decided to break in. Everyone in town whispered about the place, how the mirrors showed reflections that moved differently than the people standing before them, how sometimes you could hear whispers echoing through the glass corridors when the wind blew just right. Felix wasn't afraid of whispers. He was 12 years old. He'd read every mystery book in the library twice, and he was absolutely certain that every spooky story had a perfectly logical explanation. The rusted padlock gave way with 3 good whacks from a rock, and Felix slipped through the gap in the fence just as the afternoon sun began its descent toward the distant hills. The entrance loomed before him like a mouth frozen mid-scream, its faded paint peeling away to reveal grey wood beneath. Felix squared his shoulders, clicked on his flashlight, and stepped inside. The first thing Felix noticed was the dust, thick as velvet, coating every surface like grey snow. The second thing he noticed was the silence, so complete it felt like cotton stuffed in his ears. And the third thing he noticed, as his flashlight beam swept across the floor, was the pocket watch. It lay half buried in debris near the ticket booth, its golden case tarnished but intact. Felix picked it up, wiped away the grime, and felt his breath catch in his throat. The second hand was moving backwards, not stuck, not broken, actively ticking in reverse, as if time itself had decided to run the wrong direction. The watch felt warm in his palm, almost alive, and as he held it, he could have sworn he heard something vast shift in the darkness deeper within the maze. He pocketed the watch and moved forward. After all, mysteries didn't solve themselves. The mirror maze began innocently enough, ordinary reflections showing Felix from a dozen angles as he navigated the first few turns. But gradually, subtly, things began to change. In one mirror, his reflection blinked a half-second too late. In another, reflection Felix turned his head to look at something over his shoulder, something real Felix couldn't see. By the time he reached the maze's third corridor, the reflections had stopped pretending entirely. They moved independently now, these other Felixes, wandering through mirror worlds that didn't quite match his own. Some looked curious, pressing their hands against the glass. Others looked worried, mouthing words he couldn't hear. And one, just one, pointed urgently toward the center of the maze before dissolving into silver mist. The pocket watch in Felix's pocket pulsed with warmth, and he pressed onward. Then he saw it. At first, Felix thought the shadow was just darkness pooling between 2 mirrors. But darkness didn't have shoulders. Darkness didn't have the suggestion of a massive, hunched form. And darkness definitely didn't breathe. The shape was enormous, easily 12 feet tall if it unfolded itself, and it seemed to be made of something that shifted and swirled like smoke trapped in a bottle. Felix's heart hammered against his ribs. He wanted to run, but his feet felt rooted to the dusty floor. The giant shifted, and suddenly Felix could see glimpses within its swirling form. A child's birthday party, candles glowing, an old woman laughing, a young couple dancing in the rain. The images flickered and changed, thousands of tiny moments playing across the creature's surface like a film projected on fog. It raised its head, and Felix realized with a chill that it had been aware of him the whole time. Instead of fleeing, Felix forced himself to observe. That's what real detectives did. They gathered clues before jumping to conclusions. The giant hadn't attacked him. It hadn't even moved toward him. If anything, it seemed to be waiting. Felix pulled out the pocket watch, and the creature's attention fixed on it immediately. The swirling images within its form shifted, now showing the same scene over and over. The mirror maze decades ago, bright with lights and laughter. And then, fire, smoke, people running. The images were fragmented, desperate, like someone trying to communicate through a broken radio. The giant made a sound like wind through empty rooms, low and mournful, and Felix suddenly understood. This creature wasn't haunting the maze. It was trying to tell a story. Felix moved carefully through the maze, following the giant's shadow as it drifted between mirrors. Everywhere it passed, the reflections changed, showing him the maze's past. He saw it in its glory days, families wandering through, children laughing, couples getting wonderfully lost together. The maze had been a place of joy once, but then the images darkened. He saw workers arguing over blueprints, saw corners being cut, saw old wiring sparking behind walls, and he saw one image repeated again and again. A door hidden behind mirrors in the maze's center. A door that led down to something important. The pocket watch ticked backwards faster now, almost eager, and Felix realized it was counting down to something. The giant wasn't trying to scare people. It was trying to warn them. The center of the maze was a circular chamber of mirrors, each one reflecting Felix into infinity. But one mirror was different. It had a thin seam running down its edge, barely visible unless you knew to look for it. Felix pressed against it, and the mirror swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The giant couldn't follow. It was too large, but it pressed against the entrance, and its swirling form showed Felix one final image. The old boiler room, pipes corroded, gas leaking slowly into the earth beneath the maze, leaking toward the town's water supply. The creature made that mournful sound again, and Felix finally understood the desperation in its wordless warnings. This wasn't just about an abandoned building. This was about everyone in Silverton. The staircase led to a basement Felix was certain no one had entered in decades. His flashlight revealed exactly what the giant had shown him. An ancient boiler system, pipes green with corrosion, and a slow but steady leak of something that smelled sharp and chemical. Warning labels, faded but readable, covered the old tanks. This was the danger. The thing that had been seeping into the ground for 43 years. The reason the maze had really been shut down and never demolished. Someone had known. Someone had covered it up. And the giant, the creature made of memories, had been trapped here with this terrible knowledge, unable to make anyone understand, unable to make anyone listen. Until now. Felix raced back up the stairs, his mind already forming a plan. He burst into the mirror chamber and skidded to a halt. The giant stood, fully upright now, no longer hunching in shadows, and in the light of Felix's flashlight, he finally saw it clearly. It wasn't made of smoke or shadow. It was made of moments. Thousands upon thousands of forgotten memories, all the joy and love and laughter that had ever filled this maze, coalesced into a single massive form. Eyes like sunrise appeared in its face, gentle and desperately hopeful. A mouth formed, and though no sound came out, Felix could read the words on its lips. "Help them." Felix nodded firmly. "I will," he said. "I promise." The giant's eyes closed in something that looked remarkably like relief. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. Felix called the Environmental Protection Hotline first, then the local news, then anyone who would listen. At first, adults dismissed him. He was just a kid after all, telling wild stories about abandoned buildings. But Felix had evidence. Photos of the leaking tanks, readings from water quality tests he'd convinced the science teacher to help him run. Historical records he'd dug up at the library showing the maze's hasty closure. When the investigators finally arrived, they found exactly what Felix had described, and more. The contamination hadn't reached dangerous levels yet, but it would have within months. Felix Chen, 12 years old, had just saved his entire town. The pocket watch stopped running backwards the moment the cleanup crews began their work. Felix returned to the maze one final time, slipping past the new caution tape as the sun set over Silverton. The mirrors were just mirrors now, showing nothing but his own reflection. The giant was waiting in the center chamber, but it looked different, lighter somehow, like fog beginning to burn away in morning sun. The memories swirling within it were playing forward now, not trapped in an endless loop of warning. "You can rest now," Felix said softly. The giant smiled, actually smiled, a warm curve of light across its shifting face. And then, memory by memory, it began to dissolve, each moment floating upward like a soap bubble, drifting through the broken ceiling toward the stars. Felix walked home through streets that no longer seemed scary at all. The mirror maze would be demolished properly now, the contamination cleaned up, the cover-up investigated. The giant made of memories was finally free, its 43-year vigil complete. And Felix? Felix had learned something important that night, something he'd carry with him forever. The truth, no matter how strange, was never as frightening as the stories people invented to avoid it. The giant hadn't been a monster. It had been a guardian, protecting Silverton the only way it knew how. All it had ever needed was someone brave enough to look past the fear and actually listen. Felix patted the pocket watch in his pocket, still now, finally at rest, and smiled as the first stars appeared overhead. Some mysteries, he thought, were absolutely worth solving.